This is an unprecedented storm, and it's causing us to have an unprecedented response.
Advised, the dam on Rhode is about to bust and the area will need to be evacuated.
I just kind of felt the whole house start to shake. These trees just like came through behind the TV and like grabbed me by my side and pushed me back against the wall.
It took a week to cut us out, and I was convinced that we were not getting cut out.
Horrifying to imagine that the water came, you know, I mean, you can see here, the water came halfway up this house.
Yeah, but I don't even know if this will do a whole lot.
It's officially a Category 4 hurricane, 130 mile an hour winds. Helene's here.
Flash flooding aspect of this that's going to be taking aim at the North Carolina mountains. So this is going to be a storm that there's no other way around it, that we're going to remember for quite some time, whether that be a Category 3 storm or higher. It's going to have very significant impacts very far inland like we don't typically see.
September 24th, 2024. All eyes are on the Gulf of Mexico as a tropical system begins to develop and later be deemed Tropical Storm Helene. In a modern day full of advanced warning systems, technologies, and accurate forecasting, nobody, not even myself, could have ever imagined the hell that Helene was about to unleash. Days prior to landfall, models continued to show a higher chance than usual of something that has plagued the Gulf Coast for the last 7 consecutive years: rapid intensification. A major hurricane strike was almost certain and would claim the lives of over 200 innocent residents, leaving hundreds of thousands of people in the dark, cut off from the outside world, and forced to adapt to a time before technology existed. But first, we have to go back to the very beginning. In the days leading up to Helene's landfall, from a chasing perspective, nothing seemed out of the ordinary.
As you can see, I'm in my car driving because I'm en route to Indianapolis, Indiana to hop on a plane for what will become Hurricane Helene.
Last minute flights, last minute preparations, it all seemed very routine. But being on the road as much as I am, unforeseen obstacles can cause some major headaches while trying to plan for an upcoming storm.
It's not a storm chase unless you have something to deal with. Blew my tire on the highway, so shout out to Discount Tire for getting me in so quick. The airport in about an hour.
And as I stepped onto my shuttle to the airport, I was viewing my final hours of normality for the next 5 weeks ahead. Later that evening, I'd arrive in Tampa, Florida, and check into my hotel to get some much-needed rest while I could get it. The following morning, many questions still remained. Where was Helene going to go? And while we waited those questions to be answered, I linked up with my usual chase partners, Max Olson and Michael Hoynes, who you've seen in previous videos. Ever since Max and I captured the now viral video of Hurricane Ian's storm surge into Fort Myers Beach, we've noticed our goals take a shift while chasing hurricanes. And instead of letting Max's storm surge probes, which typically do the dirty work for us, we want to capture it in person. But in order to pull this off, an immense amount of time and planning must be done. On September 25th, it was looking likely that somewhere near Alligator Point, Florida, was going to bear the brunt of Helene's storm surge, and we locked down several locations that seemed safe to ride out the storm. But deep down, my gut was telling me Helene was going to end up further east than we previously thought. And by the morning of September 26th, just 24 hours before landfall, it was clear Helene was east of the estimated track, and the race back east to put together a whole new plan was on. While I scoped out places in Cedar Key and noted the storm surge already coming in despite Helene being hundreds of miles offshore, Max and Michael were put in touch with a local realtor that had a rental property and agreed to let us ride out the storm in Steinhatchee, Florida, at our own risk, of course. Concrete, steel beams, and 8+ feet off of the ground with several more feet of elevation, we knew if there was any chance to survive the forecasted 15-foot storm surge, it was here. So we unloaded our gear and supplies, parked our vehicle on the nearby bridge that stood 25 feet off the ground, and hitched a ride back to our shelter. As the vehicle pulled away, we knew from that point forward, we were on our own. But in a turn of events, while Max and I started finalizing all of our preparations, and Michael making some final walkthroughs of the area, Michael came back with a very unexpected guest.
All right, so the storm is about 3 hours away,
About 3 hours.
and we found a little cat outside.
He was gonna be in the surge.
No tags,
No tags.
and the
unneutered.
place we're staying in has tuna.
Since all we really had to feed him was tuna, this was the name that he would adopt by us. And with Helene knocking on the front door, we decided he would stay with us for the remainder of the storm.
All right, so what we got going on?
All right, so it's September 26th and the night of landfall at 5:18, and we have Hurricane Helene right here. It's rapidly strengthening, potentially to a Category 4. We are right here, should make landfall right around here, which is going to send 15 to 20 feet of surge right outside our front door.
All right, 7:30. It's starting to get dark. Looks like landfall is going to be a little bit later than we were originally thinking, but
Gonna look a whole lot different in about 3 hours.
this is looking east at the east window. Unfortunately, these are probably not going to be here in the morning.
For the first part of the hurricane, we made our way to the bottom floor to film the vicious winds as we had offshore flow, meaning water would be flowing out of the bay for the time being. But like a monster hiding in the night, lurking and waiting to pounce, we knew this would not last forever and were ready to retreat to high ground at a moment's notice. As winds began to really ramp up,
I got it.
Michael had gone upstairs to grab something just moments ago, only to realize that one of the doors had blown open.
The other door, the double door. I got it to latch again.
It blew it open?
Yeah. I got it to latch.
He attempted to latch the doors as the wind began to grow stronger, and about 30 minutes would pass before Max suggested we go check the door again to be sure it was still shut.
Michael, you want to go check upstairs, make sure our door's good?
If these doors became compromised, our whole structure would be at risk of failing, and with our new friend Tuna inside, we had to be sure the problem was taken care of. I went to go shoot video of the structure rocking so much that the toilet water was getting blown in and outward, when all of a sudden...
It opened.
Something did. We were shook by a loud noise, stuff hitting the building, and both Michael and I's ears popping violently.
Something that wasn't right.
And my heart sank because I thought for sure part of our structure had just failed. Meanwhile, downstairs at the same time, Max heard a suspicious roar coming down the street and knew a mesovortex was about to impact us and dove around the corner for shelter.
That was a mesovortex for sure. That was scary hearing that come. Holy crap.
All right, ready? Yep, let's do it.
Okay, we gotta watch out for debris.
Yep. Yeah. Debris there. Yeah. Oh!
I can hear it coming down the street.
It got it hit, our ears popped violently, and we thought the door went down.
Yeah, we thought it was
The gunner got ripped off, the wind switched completely and flew right through here. And I had to run into that hallway.
More time would pass, and we noticed a shift in the winds. The wind was now onshore, and lightning revealed the river fighting its own current. We could tell the monster in the night was coming, and retreated upstairs to change out our camera batteries. It was at this time we realized the toll the storm was taking on our building.
Oh!
The main living room doors were having trouble staying latched, and Max noticed the bedroom door flexing and letting in a lot of water, forcing us to barricade it shut.
That's one problem solved.
Immediately after we finally got our doors latched and secured, I peeked outside of one of the windows and became startled when I noticed our entire yard and concrete parking area had seemingly vanished. As we opened the door and looked down, already over a foot of water had come in, and the water was continuing to rise very fast.
All right, ready? Yeah. Big time storm surge.
Starts getting sketchy.
Oh my God, look at her roaring. Look at they're floating.
Oh, floating. Houses are floating away. Oh, look at them all.
All of them.
Is there a small flashlight? He has it, yeah.
Oh, there it goes. Literal house is floating away.
The storm surge had finally reached its peak height, and all of our neighboring buildings had came crashing into the nearby tree line and into our structure. Thankfully for us, a majority of the buildings missed our shelter, leaving ours relatively unscathed. A few managed to break free and drift off into the night down the swift-moving river, while docks and other objects broke free of their anchors and floated away.
Goes our dock.
Several more hours would go by before the surge began to finally recede.
This is crazy. I've never seen surge come up so fast before. Houses started floating away. Insanity. Helene's here.
It's hard to fathom that the water was all the way up there and it came from down here. What a ride.
A few hours ago, I would have been completely underwater. I really don't know what to say. I've truly never experienced a surge like this, so.
At this point, it was getting very late, and we settled in to attempt to get a bit of rest before the sun began to rise. Tuna hid under the bed most of the night, scared, shaken, but safe. We all drifted off for a few hours of sleep before the sun revealed the extent of the damage left behind from Helene.
First dozer.
Morning light revealed what we had feared: widespread destruction. Places that survived Idalia just a year prior lie in shambles, and residents stand stunned at what was left behind from the destructive storm. Meanwhile,
Oh, we're gonna go up in the attic if we have to, guys. Oh my lord.
Helene crashes into the Appalachians, and what would unfold would be something we have not seen in our lifetime. It can only be described as biblical. While all eyes were on Helene's landfall in Florida, dire warnings were being issued for areas of North and South Carolina and into the Tennessee valleys. A rare high risk of flash flooding was issued, with forecasted amounts of up to 30 inches of rainfall. Somehow, after Helene's surge receded, we retrieved our vehicles that were undamaged.
Every window's still intact.
And I was able to escape that afternoon and make my way up to the Carolinas, while Max and Michael made their way south to cover Helene's surge damage left behind. When you've chased storms as long as I have, you can just tell when something isn't right. The following morning, as I approached South Carolina border, reports started trickling out that Asheville had been cut off from the outside world. No communication, no power, and no way out. And as I approached the South Carolina border, my heart dropped. I was still hours away from any flood zone, and there were miles upon miles of gas lines stacking up along the interstates. With communications cut off, my gut was telling me something horrific had just happened that we didn't know about yet due to the lack of cell service. At this same time, while everyone was attempting to flock to Asheville, I'd come across my first flood zone of Mount Holly, North Carolina, a suburb just outside of Charlotte, where the river was still cresting to record heights and sent homeowners scrambling to higher ground. Residents began to notice my drone flying around and bombarded me and begged to please check on their homes so they could see the extent of the damage. Fly, change battery, rinse and repeat. This is what I did for almost an hour before I had to move on. Breaking the bad news one after another, I could feel my heart getting heavy, and knowing that this wasn't even the worst area, my stomach churned about what still lied ahead and made my way deeper into the mountains. As I drew closer and closer to the mountains, I received some of the most bone-chilling messages I have ever gotten covering a disaster that essentially said that all of western North Carolina was closed. Do not come here. As my cell coverage began to cut in and out before losing it completely, I approached the town of Morganton and revealed some of the horrific damage left behind from Helene's flood that invaded the city's water supplies, leaving them with no drinkable water across the entire city. So it's September 30th here in Chimney Rock, North Carolina, and right now I'm waiting to see if I can gain access to town that was devastated by a flash flood that came through. I gotta wait on the fire and police chief to be able to gain access, get my drone up, and hopefully get the word out there of how bad it is, because my phone just keeps blowing up with people asking me, is so-and-so's house okay? Is so-and-so's restaurant still there? And we just don't know. There's no service anywhere around here, and just trying to get the word out there and see if I can get in there. For days in and days out, I'd gain access to more and more towns. When I thought I had seen the worst, it would only get worse. Town after town, just absolutely leveled by floodwaters. It was as if the storm surge we had experienced in Florida was dumped over the entire Appalachian Mountains and sent down the mountains as a raging tsunami. If you lived anywhere near a creek, river, or stream, your house was either damaged or completely destroyed and wiped from existence. Small creeks, streams, and rivers from all over doubled or even tripled in size. Lake and ponds where dams had been breached just simply did not exist anymore. Hundreds still missing, recovery efforts still ongoing, and knowing the fate of many that still remain to be found hiding in the trees, it was awful. After multiple days of barely sleeping and getting as many stories and videos out as possible, I finally caved and had to take a day off to help. I knew I couldn't help everybody, but if I could bring hope to just a few folks, I could rest easier. And as I approached my first town for delivery of Old Fort, I would stumble across Kaylee and Trinity taking time out of their lives in Hickory, North Carolina to bring in donations and help others.
All right, so just dropped off one truckload of water, and I booked two girls here, Kaylee and Trinity, and have offered to resupply and bring a bunch of supplies. So we're gonna double up on the trucks and help these people out. This is Old Fort, North Carolina. I can't even get to Asheville because I-40 is washed out and they're only letting essential crews through, which I get. I'm gonna try and still get to Asheville with this next load, but if not, I'm gonna come back here because these people have a lot of needs.
Man, another long day of coverage. Grateful I met a couple of really awesome human beings today, and I'm actually at their house right now in their guest room. They were nice enough to offer me their guest room and a bed for the night, so I don't have to keep driving all the way back and forth between hotels and here. But we're gonna try and get up to the mountains tomorrow and get some more coverage from places that aren't getting any coverage and people still trapped, and get the word out there. So another long day tomorrow of coverage, but it's a job that needs done. These are really important images to get out there to people and show how bad it is. So I'm gonna get some sleep. Good night, guys.
As more time passed, the more stories of survival would come forward. Amanda, a police officer in Buncombe County, was out on duty while family friend Michaela remained at home unaware of the events that were about to transpire.
I thought that, like, it's just another storm, it's just been raining, like, these people are crazy, like, it's not gonna be anything. They're like, get home, because I didn't think anything was gonna happen. I went to bed like I'm just gonna wake up, it's gonna be a normal day. We woke up with no power, barely any cell service. Like my anxiety was kind of high, so I just got caught in this cycle of like, oh, something bad is gonna happen, it is gonna happen. Went to the bathroom to kind of calm myself down. Well, whenever I was walking back through the living room, I just kind of felt the whole house start to shake. Well, when I came through the living room right in front of the TV, it was like something out of a movie. Like these trees just like came through behind the TV and like grabbed me by my side and pushed me back against the wall. Like my legs felt weak, and that's all I could think about was like, I feel like I'm gonna collapse because I can't walk, my legs feel so weak. And then it's just like okay, you have to stay awake, you cannot like pass out because no one's gonna find you. But as soon as I stepped out of the window, like I was up waist deep in mud. I lost his shoes, about lost my pants. So I had to like try to dig myself out of the mud to climb on top of the trees and like grab trees that were going ahead of me, and somehow made it across the driveway, or what was a driveway, without passing out, and make it over to the neighbor's house.
Being out there in the storm, I knew it was going to be bad as fast as the water was rising. And then the neighbor called and said something about a tree in our house. Well, I was scared. I didn't know if she was okay. I didn't know what was going on. And then when the neighbor sends a text and says that, there's a tree and mud and the house is gone, I don't know. I was scared, but the problem is I'm out here, working as a deputy, so I can't just stop what I'm doing and go run into my house at that point.
While Michaela was fighting to get to safety and Amanda still on duty being overrun with rescue calls, residents and small business owner in Spruce Pine, HANCE, Clay, and Amy, lost all communications while she was out of the state, and the town of their prized business became swallowed in water.
Well, we certainly weren't expecting what happened. I don't think anybody was. Ironically, I moved up here from Florida. Mentioned something the week before about a storm being down in the Gulf. I said, I'm so glad I don't have to worry about these storms anymore, not living in Florida. And then I went on a little trip to drive up to see my sister in New Jersey. And Thursday night we talked on the phone, and Hance said, you know, I'll call you in the morning, let you know how things are going. And I said, okay. And that was the last I heard from him. Honestly, the only way that I knew what was going on here in Spruce Pine was the Let's Talk Spruce Pine Facebook page. And anyway, they were posting pictures of the flood. So I knew that like the whole lower street had been flooded where our business is. And we have several really large trees in front of our house. And so I was super worried that one had come down on the house when I couldn't get in touch with Han. Absolutely bizarre driving back in and dodging power lines and trees and big, huge chunks of road gone that you had to drive around the edge of, and just the riverway, looking at how different everything looked and how destroyed everything was. It was crazy.
I mean, this was one of the most beautiful spots of the river. But yeah, I used to go down the tracks about 3 miles and get in the river and just walk the river all the way back and fish, and it was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So that, obviously that over there, that used to be that was a road that went all the way down by the river with trees and a big sandy bank, and yeah, it was just gorgeous. Beautiful. And they, it was one of the last ones, so they actually maintained it, which was nice for, being able, I could go see my friends over there, and, we didn't have to go all around.
As word slowly began to spread about the catastrophic event unfolding, more and more donations began to pour in from folks wanting to help, and some residents took organizing and distributing them out into their own hands.
We're at about 90 after the deliveries this morning. We're at about 90 box trucks loads that came through. So I'm a 6th generation native in Haywood County. So I waited for somebody else to kind of step up to try to help this part of town, and they didn't. And so that's why I decided to step up and, start doing this, because nobody else was. I'm going to put these out, like just different letters and photos and little pictures and things from kids. That's important that we keep a resource going for a while.
In Burnsville, with lack of communications, we're learning to adapt to the situation and came up with a creative way to communicate with one another across the city.
People have been leaving messages for each other, prayer requests, and just notes, helpful things that might help people find people or help find resources. Or we came to Burnsville because it's an incredibly supportive community. People are really good-hearted, so people are just out here helping each other as they can.
And as if the flooding wasn't bad enough, images began surfacing of extreme deforestation in the higher elevations surrounding Asheville. With Helene moving at such a fast pace, it brought extreme winds on top of the heavy rain with it, and while thousands were fighting for survival from the floodwater, Lauren Flickinger and her family ducked for cover as the entire forest was demolished around them.
6:30, one of the kids woke us up, and at that point, the wind was very aggressive. For the next hour and a half, from 7 to 8:30, every 5 minutes, a tree was falling so close that the entire house and the entire foundation of the house was shaking around us. We had the kids with us. We were on a mat below the bed thinking that something could come through. We had one little window we could see outside, and through that window, we could only see 30 yards. They were literally looking like they were touching the ground and then coming back up and then going the other way and then snapping like toothpicks. And out that one window that we had, We had an entire forest of yew, and within an hour and a half, there was one tree left standing. We used to live in the woods, and now we have views of Mount Pisgah. When he came back downstairs, I said, is our trees through the house? Like, are all the windows broken? The wind was so loud that I was convinced, and sitting even downstairs was so loud, I was convinced that everything upstairs was shattered and broken because of how loud it was. So to then come upstairs and see that literally the entire forest had fallen around us in the matter of an hour, and our house was still fully intact with, yes, some damage to the roof, but with not a single window broken, was nothing short of a miracle. This was just devastating. I mean, it is devastating to look around and see an entire forest gone. This is far from the coast, it's still a beautiful place to live, and seemed fairly safe. Now, whether that was correct or not, seemed to, I think, most people fairly safe from the effects of major storms that are increasing in intensity, and the reality is that isn't true. And I think if you're not safe here, it doesn't feel like you're safe anywhere.
One month after Helene's landfall, I'd return to North Carolina and support the charity event Concert for the Carolinas. Being surrounded by so many new, smiling faces in the wake of tragedy was such a breath of fresh air.
Great, man. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, love it.
Very well, appreciate you. Stand out from the crowd, right?
A little bit, a little bit.
I've always loved the Carolinas since I was a kid. The true Southern hospitality is absolutely real down there. Throughout this whole experience, I became very good friends with HANCE and Amy. And when I returned, they were nice enough to welcome me into their home and show me their art studios where all of the magic happens for their business.
A hat making studio.
So sick.
Here's the laser. These are some of the blocks for all the different shapes and disc golf Yeti.
That is literally the best thing ever. I love that. And you made this one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She made this?
Yeah, she's been working on that's one of her new ones.
What?
Yeah, I think she's gonna auction that off for relief fund or something. Yeah, it's all paint, oil paint, fabric, pieces of paper.
That is insane.
Yeah, and the hat's here where she uses the wood burner.
That is incredible.
Big dragon, and then she hand paints it. I've been working on for a while.
Dude, that's insane.
So it's for the oil spills. So he see all the oil spill, and then he went under the oil and found the shell.
And if it's one thing I've learned from covering so many of these events, is no matter how impossible it seems, the human spirit will always rise and these towns will return. But despite the positive message, yet another monster by the name of Milton was steering course for the Sunshine State yet again.